Oh no. This is the last podcast for 2022 for Flipping Houses for Rookies. I usually don't like to put dates in there, but I mean, come on, it is the last podcast of 2022, right?
Another year.
So here we are from the geriatrics ward.
Yep.
Me coming off of COVID and Peter coming off of laryngitis and some other kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you see a nurse walking behind us, that's because we're in the nursing home, and they're coming to give us our meds.
I get mine for free.
Yeah. So, all right, episode number 336.
Oh.
Here is today's title.
Well.
What exactly do you need to know from a seller to make profitable, legal, creative deals? There you go. The description is, so you have figured out how to find leads, even overcome your fear of I'm going to give that to you again. So I want to make sure that we're recording here. Yes, okay, because it looks like Peter froze for a minute. I just want to make sure it wasn't me. So here we go. Yeah. So I was just checking to make sure it wasn't me. I'm over here reading and nothing happened. So here's the description. So you have figured out how to find leads, even overcome your fear of talking to sellers on the phone. You have tried scripts and even your own ideas of what to say, but aren't really getting deals or spending too long on the calls. Maybe think you have a deal, then the seller ghosts you. Or you feel you don't get the right information while on the first contact call and have to call back. You might even sense you're talking too much or past the point of where the seller is all ready to say yes. Point is, if you are not rich or where you want to be with real estate, it has to be what you're doing on these calls of gathering information and solving problems that sellers will pay handsomely with their equity and cash flow. So we need to know how to quickly get your information, yet leave the seller with the warm and fuzzies. In this one podcast episode, we are going to give you 30 years of practice in one 60-minute span so you can completely shortcut your success in getting deals.
Well.
Yeah.
Mighty strong words there, Mr. Hawthorne.
All right, so let's start off with our housekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
There is a link in today's description of wherever you're watching us or hearing us. It's actually pretty cool. It's a masterclass series, a 3-part masterclass series of some of the things that we've been doing recently that is very exciting. So you should probably go check that out. As well as you should subscribe to us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. Please leave us a review, good, bad, or ugly. We kind of live off of those. Any podcast live off of those, not just us. Also, if you have any questions, there's 2 places you can go. Actually, 3 places you can go. We record this podcast every Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not a popular time for a lot of people to come watch us or hear us, but we know that, which is why we live stream to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you decide that you want to be part of the podcast, you can go to any one of those platforms, which is Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, and you can leave us comments or talk to us while we're doing the podcast live. And I only respond to things that we're talking about, because otherwise the podcast will get delayed and we'll get into other things. We used to do that, and it got to be too complex. However, if you do need information, You can go to WhatsApp Messenger, look up Let's Talk Real Estate, and there's a free group you can be part of there. Or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, and on the top right-hand side, there's a support ticket or a support link there. And I answer all my own support tickets. I have no VA doing it or anything like that. Or you could just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/support, and I will answer your questions personally. And if you have a question for Peter, do the same. Whenever he gets questions, which is not a lot, but when he gets questions, I just forward them to him, and he can talk to you if you so desire. Okay, Peter, we get all that out of the way, huh?
Certainly did.
So, just for the record, if you're watching us, Peter's at least he is here for now. Peter's screen is froze, but we have his voice, and we're just going to carry on and pretend like that's not happening. So,
you still can't see me?
Yeah, no, you're just frozen, but that's okay. I can hear you, and
okay.
Don't just leave it that way. So,
sure.
All right. So, Pete, after spending so much personal time with coaching clients, and you know I do that because you're part of that, helping them make deals, I'm left feeling a bit weird. I feel like I'm at a point of just total mystery on how some, actually most folks, obtain their information. Even more to the point, what they feel is important and not important when gathering information. So, without diverting too quick and without getting into a whole nother podcast here, the first thing that I notice is too many newbies want to talk about the house. They think gathering information about the house and the condition of the house and what to do is important. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of scripts out there that have a lot of data there. So it's kind of typical. But, if you're buying a house, for yourself or selling a house to an end user, it's about the house. Does it have enough bedrooms for my kids? I want a patio, what they want in the house, but we're not living in it.
Right.
I even tell people, they start telling me about the house. I tell them, honestly, I don't need to know too much about the house itself because I'm not living in it. I just want to know if it's something that I could use, I could sell, I can help somebody with, and I move on. You're not living in it.
So a big distinction that I'd like to make, and we don't talk about this enough, and maybe in the new year we'll make a big deal out of this, but what really is the definition of creative real estate? And I've been thinking about this for days. Like, really, what is the definition of creative real estate?
Well, isn't it short for creative real estate financing?
Right. So that's
Isn't
my
it
point.
More about the financing than the real estate?
Right. And that's exactly my point is that we're in the business of the paper that's attached to the real estate, not the real estate itself. See, when you're doing flipping, you're all about the property. It's buy ugly. So in other words, everything that you do, at least this is a billism, right? Everything you should do should bring value somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Whether it's a simple conversation, so somebody walks away and say, "Oh, I enjoyed having that conversation with him," right? Or it's the waitress is says to her, "They were good customers. I liked them. They were fun."
Yeah.
Or you sit next to somebody in church and they're like, "Oh, I enjoyed going to church next to Bill today," right? So everything should have value. So when you're a novice investor, the first thing that happens is that you think, because it's a I don't even know the right word for this. It's a myth that the only way to make money in real estate is to add value to the property. So buy ugly, sell pretty.
Well, that's one way, but that's not what we're talking about here.
Right. But that's what my point is that's the reason why it's the easiest way to be able to learn that type of real estate because it's just everybody already thinks that.
Well, that's what's on the TV.
Right.
Bill, we should have a creative real estate show.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be sexy? See the house? It's still the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Fast forward to the end. Hey, look, it's still the same.
Yeah.
That go over real big. We'll get the celebrities on it, right?
Yeah. So the point is that we're actually, I mean, not technically, because I'm sure legally me saying this is not cool, but we're buying and selling the paper. We're the value that we bring to the deal is the financing aspects. So if we could get our seller or a private lender or somehow get, which is usually our seller, to give us good terms or good financing, we're going to pass that along to our buyer because that's what our buyer really wants. What our buyer really wants is not to have to go through bank loans, right? If they can help.
You know what you could call that? For the buyer, it's totally an opportunity.
Oh yeah.
That they don't get otherwise.
Right. So back to what we're talking about. It's even more to the point. What astonishes me is what information is gathered from most people when they're talking about real estate, which triggers a big question for me. And the purpose of this podcast: how and why do they do it wrong? And more importantly, looking at their results, I often wonder if they even did a call, or are they just making shit up?
Oh man, that bad.
I mean, it's that bad, yeah. So, too many times I'm told that a client has a great deal. Oh, I got this great deal, and I got to hear about this great deal, and they're off already buying their new yacht, right?
Yeah.
And need my help to only find out 3 minutes into the conversation they don't have the information they needed for me to do a data analysis.
Wow.
Right? And help construct the perfect offer. So I would like to rename this podcast, but it's not sexy enough. That's why it's not on the title. So today's podcast is all about data analysis. And people wonder why they can't do deals. They want all this fancy deal structure, and they think they don't understand the deal structuring. And it's not the deal structuring. What most people don't realize is if you ask the right questions and do the right data analysis, the deal will just pop out at you.
Right. So it's even before the deal, you have to have the correct data, especially what the seller's trying to do, what he's willing to do,
right?
What he has to do, perhaps.
Right.
You have to ask those kind of questions. Then you can have the data you need to go in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Which is quite interesting to me because I get many that tell me that they're going to find a real estate deal and then hire me as a coach. In fact, I have shut off, and this is not something that I should probably even say loudly, but I stopped doing my free monthly meetup. I haven't done it for about 3 months. The only place you can hear me publicly these days is on the podcast. Most of my stuff is done within Creative REI Reply or Flipping Houses for Rookies behind the doors, which is a decision I made. But more importantly, I stopped doing my 45-minute free consults.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason why is because I hear the same thing over and over again. And number one thing is, and I'm not even trying to sell coaching on the 45-minute consult. It's just like they'll tell me they need this, they need that, and I'm like, have you ever considered coaching? Not even trying to sell it. I just want to know if they know about it. Right? Because what they just explained to me is what they need is coaching, right? There's nothing else that's going to fix it, whether it's me or somebody else, right?
That's right, yeah.
And 1,000% of the time, they tell me, well, I'm going to get a deal, and then I'm going to hire you, right? And that confuses me, see, because the quality, not the quantity, the quality of information depends on knowing the ideal flow of the transaction
Mm-hmm.
and the purpose on which the activity needs to happen in the transaction.
Yep.
Right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So to completely divert for a second, and probably shouldn't say this because I really don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm a History Channel guy, and I mean, I just spent, as you're aware, I just spent 4 days in bed with COVID, almost 5 days.
Yep.
That was my Christmas this year, right? Thank you, Santa Claus. And
Bad timing. Boy, oh boy.
yeah. So there's this show that I can't remember the name of it, but it's in Canada, and these guys are demolition guys.
Yeah.
And they have an incredible business. I mean, they take down like I watched this morning at 5:00 this morning. They took down a bridge over a highway. In other words, they had one side of the bridge done. Now they're trying to do the other side. In 12 hours, they took down like probably 2 miles worth of bridge.
2 miles?
Something like that, 1.5 miles. It was like, I mean, they showed it. It's like they have all these machines. These guys are just incredible, right? The show is based on, they have a division, this one guy and a couple guys that will go with him. And before they do any demolition, he goes in and looks for things that they can sell. And on the construction site, there's a store. He has a store, and he sells like doors and artifacts and like neon signs, things he'll find in all these demolition.
Sure.
Which sounds kind of cheesy until you start watching the show, and you find out, like this morning, he sold an electrical system in a building for $20,000.
Sure, right? A whole electrical system?
Yeah, because it had like a generator and had all these panels, and the guy comes in and the guy will take them out and sell them to somebody else and make a whole bunch more money.
Sure. Why throw it away? I mean, that's not the problem. The problem is something with the building and the structure or whatever, and there's things in it. They do that on some of the rehab shows. I've seen that. They'll take doors and cabinets, whatever, and make a few bucks. Why not?
The point of me talking about this right now is that I've watched a handful of these shows. To me, it's fascinating. What's fascinating about it is they know the flow of the demolition. Like what's first, what's second, what's third, and they talk about like the big thing of the show, the drama of the show, if you would, because every TV show has to have drama, right? The drama of the TV show is this: you have 1 day for picking. You have one demolition day for picking, because everything to them is all on schedule, right? I mean, these guys are big time. I mean, I watched them take down a 4-story hotel the other day between 2 buildings with this crane, with not even a crane, with this machine that had this arm that extended. It seemed like 4 miles. And the guy he makes the machine like the, anyways. So the point is that the timing and the flow of the demolition is flawless, because these guys know what they're doing. So everything's coordinated. Now these are a bunch of construction guys, not to make light of construction guys, but these guys know what they're doing. They know the flow. They know what piece comes down first, what piece comes down second, because if not, people get hurt, things get damaged. You know what I mean? They get reckless. And to me, that's like putting together a transaction. Right?
Sure.
So I get these students, right? I get these students who tell me they're going to do a deal first, then hire me to coach them, right? So how do they know what the ideal scene is for the transaction? How are they going to gather the correct information? Or more importantly, know if they're on the right track, or if they're on the wrong track, right?
Hmm.
when this deal's starting to derail? How do they know all that?
Yeah, sooner than later.
Right. So the answer, and I'm not here to try sell coaching, because my coaching group is very small right now. I think I've taken one new coaching client on in the last 6 months. Right.
Hmm.
So the point that I'm trying to make is that because I hear this all the time, I'm wondering why. That's why we're here today, right?
Oh, I see.
So the answer is they won't know until it's too late, like you just said, right?
Mm.
And often can't recover the deal, and if they do, often regret the deal later on because of a point of it starting to fall apart, and they slammed it back together without thinking,
Mm.
about the future, right? So one of the things that I have personally been struggling, and I can tell you this is definitely with my wife and my children, they're very smart people, especially my daughter is going for a PhD right now. I mean, she's
Mm.
extremely smart.
Yep.
Sean, my other partner, is extremely smart. He comes up with some of the most incredible things,
Hmm.
but they can't look past tomorrow.
Oh boy.
Seriously, there's a lot of people that are like that don't think in the
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And a big part of my training, like yours, is running events,
That's right.
right?
Event should have at least a 6 week, time track in front of it to get everything organized.
I mean, I learned
Planning,
that
planning.
when I learned that, like yourself, I was working for the church. There
Hmm.
were 6 major events a year. We knew when they were in the beginning of the year. We didn't know the exact dates, but we knew the month, and it was always the first or second of Saturday of the month,
Yeah.
right? And 85% of the event is before you get there.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's all the
Yeah.
planning before you get there.
Well, yeah. Once I
And,
got there, I was like, okay, I'm done. Because everybody
right,
knew what to do. They ran around and did all the things. They got everybody there. I was like,
right,
phew, I'm all
right.
set. Hey, go ahead, guys, run.
Yeah,
And we're talking satellites, we're talking dinners, we're talking sales and
you know,
events, and there's food, all kinds of stuff.
fundraising, and yeah,
All
all kinds
kinds
of
of
stuff,
stuff. Yeah.
materials. Yeah. So why do we bring this up on a why is all this important? Why am I babbling on about all this stuff? Because this type of thinking is how I naturally think, and most don't, and that's the difference, right? You
Mhm.
can't talk about a deal today without thinking about the future. You can't structure a deal today without thinking, where is this house going to be in 2 years from now? You can't structure a deal and think, okay, once I get the keys, what am I going to do? You got to at least think that far in advance,
Mhm.
right? Because what I'm telling you earlier is we're not buying and selling the house, we're buying and selling the financing attached to the house.
Yeah.
So financing means what, Peter? What is one word for financing?
Who's paying what?
Yeah.
When?
Okay. No. Financing is time.
Well, that's why I said the when part, because
Yeah.
well, yeah, the thing about a house that's different than, well, you can houses and cars. Throw cars in there for a second. You buy your groceries, you go to the store, you pay for it. Even if you put it on the card, you pay it for it next week when you get your bill in. A house or a car lasts 5 years. A house lasts 10, 20, 30 years. So it's got all this time into it. So there's money I got to pay now, money I got to pay every month. Maybe you got to pay a bill, a balloon at the end, and there's a lot of financing with the time involved, and it's long because it's
That's what
big.
my point
It's a lot of
is that
money.
everything is time. In creative finance, it's all about time.
Hmm.
So it's a 3 year, like you said, it's a 2 year, it's a 5 year, it's a 7 year, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
here's what happens. You don't think about time, right? But you're thinking about your problem right now, right? So you're thinking about the 5 grand or the 10 grand that you're yearning for right now, right? When making
Yeah.
the transaction. So
Yeah.
you're not putting enough stress on later. You're thinking about now, the 5, 10, 20, 30 grand, whatever you're going to make right now, right? You put the deal together, especially if you stay in it, if you stay in the deal, right? All of a sudden the 5, 10, 20, 30 grand is long gone, and now you're stuck with the dark side of the deal. Making $200 a month. And the guy calls you up and says, like, no, how about this? I'm in bed in COVID, right? Sick as a dog. Christmas Eve, I get a phone call, and there's a tree on top of one of my houses because there was 60-mile-an-hour winds here for 2 days. So if I was making a couple $100 a month on that property, which I'm not, how would I feel? I'm in bed with COVID on Christmas Eve, like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock Christmas Eve. How would that make you feel if you're only making $200 a month? And the 10 grand you made 2 years ago.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Not good.
It's like it's a knot in your stomach.
I got a call one time. It was like 9 o'clock Saturday night. It was a blizzard. And tenant calls up, hey, somebody's in my parking place and there's no place to park. It was a tiny, tiny little side street. No place to park. Could you get them out of here? Sure. Like, I didn't have a towing service. I called the towing service. It's like, do you have a contractor with us? No. Sorry, we can't help you. Jesus. Keep making fight. So if that, an hour later it resolved, but you don't need that 9 o'clock on a Saturday night when no one's working, or you're in Boston and somebody calls, hey, the heat's off. Right. These things can happen.
So just before I move on, I don't want anybody to think that I'm here trying to hire, trying to get them to pay for coaching, right? Bottom line is I even had coaching, but the only purpose for coaching anything is shorten your time, shorten your span to getting results. It shortens your time, right? I mean,
but Bill, you know what? I know you got a point, but you know what else? If you're too long on the runway, how many people give up?
Oh yeah,
it's not even shortened. You might not make it at all. It's gone.
Right.
I'm sorry to be, that's true. You and I can sit here and tell names of lots of people have come and gone because they didn't do it and they just gave up. That's the sad part. Sorry.
So anyways, 99% of the people right now are going to brush that off, and they're not even going to pay attention to what we're talking about right now. And we'll just call those people the do-it-yourselfers. So let's talk a little theory that might help them because they're not going to pay for coaching, right?
Sure.
Whether it's me or anybody else. Okay. So first thing so we're talking about the information you're going to gather from a seller, right? So First, there's two actions of gathering information to making a decision or big decisions. Okay. Number one, first you need to have a normal information flow. Okay. You have to flow of data coming to you. Does that make sense?
You mean in general or on one particular house or deal?
I'm talking about to make a decision on anything, you need to have information flowing to you.
Okay.
Okay. And in this case, just like what you just said, right? It's a people-to-people conversation. Right. So whether you're doing it people to people or you have a trained virtual assistant doing it, they have to get not information, but the right information.
Sure.
Right. So too many people try to replace this these days. They try to do it via texting, or they try to do it with these tools, and they want to set it on automation and they want to forget it. Right.
Yep.
Done this way, which, by the way, we call this the discovery stage, right? You could get the proper data to analyze and make the right deals for you, the seller and the buyer.
Yep.
So it's all around the analyzation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
wrong information is hard to evaluate or get correct answers from. And that's where most people stumble, or most rookies stumble, is they're trying to look for that creative real estate deal that they could fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the wrong end of the stick. What's happening is they have the wrong information. That's why it's not flowing easily. It's like the old saying with computers, right? Crap in gets crap out.
Yep.
Right? So the second point is that once you have the data, right? Which let me just clarify a few things here. So when I mean data, I'm talking about, first of all, the very first thing is the math.
Sure.
Okay. So the math is, what's the price? What's the payment? What's the duration? And what's the down payment if they ask for it?
Yeah.
So if I have a $200,000 house and they want $3,000 and it costs $3,000 a month for a mortgage, can I do that deal?
Mm-hmm.
No, not mathematically correct. Because if you put $200,000 at whatever current interest rate is, the payment is not going to be $3,000. That's like me saying to you, "Hey Peter, if you why don't you go buy a new Hyundai right now,
Mm-hmm.
and your payment's going to be $1,800 a month? Would you do that?
No.
Why?
It's not it's not my budget. It doesn't fit. I mean, I had somebody with a condo like that, and it was like a little condo, 2,000 or 2,500 a month. It's like, that's just way out of whack. I think it was a 15-year mortgage or something like that. But it just, the number was like, no, because I'm thinking, who's going to pay that? I'm thinking ahead, right?
So so who's going to pay that? But why do you think that? Who's going to pay that? Because there are multiple other Hyundais that you could get for $200 a month.
Yeah.
Right. So the popular number is $200 a month, not $1,800 a month. So if you have a house you're going to try to sell for $3,000 and the buyer can go get it somewhere else for $1,600, why would they give you $3,000? No. Sure. It's possible it could have a helicopter pad and a built-in swimming pool, and it could be next to Tom Cruise's house, and somebody will want that, but it's not likely. Right.
Right.
So the math.
Maybe it's on the beach.
Yeah, the math is cursory. In other words, it's not something. It's just data that is wrong. It's illogical data that you don't want to use.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's got a falsehood in it.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is you're going to want to get the price, you're going to want to get the payment, you're going to get the duration, and you're going to want to get down payment if they want. Now, here's the interesting thing, and I'm going to get to this because we're going to need time to do this second half. I'm going to plunge right in now, right? So here's the interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have been preaching now for a better part of a half a year. You don't need scripts anymore. You just need to get the price, the payment, the duration, and the deposit if they talk about it. And that comes from us sending a memorandum that commits the seller saying that they're interested. It shows us their motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to kind of let you in on a little secret at this particular point. All of those four things are nothing but pre-qualifiers. They're not deal makers.
Mm.
They're pre-qualifiers. What those are is a gauge of what the seller is willing to do so that you know how to proceed.
That makes sense, because if they're really way off,
right,
what are you doing now?
So before I get done in the next 30 minutes, you're gonna completely understand this. So I have some stuff written down. So let me break this down for you. So I wrote it by numbers, okay? So
Yep.
let me just read what I have instead of jumping ahead. So number one, you get the facts about the math and the deal, like I just talked about, like the amount owed, the payments, the comps, etc. Right? So you're going to get the comps too. What are comps? Comparables are houses like your houses that have recently sold, so it gives you a good idea on how much. How much what, Peter?
Well, how much you can sell for?
Yeah, exactly. So it's how much the buyers are willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a survey of what's popular with your sellers. I'm sorry, with your buyers.
Yeah, what's likely that you could pull off
Right.
with this house? Because you're saying that people don't look in the future.
Right.
They don't enough, but you know what they do? They worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why can't you do the? Oh, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know what's going to happen. So instead of looking at the future and trying to figure it out, they worry about it.
Right.
Funny, huh?
So now that you get this data, right? Number two, you have the math and you get a general idea how the money now, money monthly, and money later is, and you start to hunt for the situation or why they want to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I personally do it this way. How much you asking for the house? I'm asking 230,000. Okay, why? What made you pick that number? How did you come about that? What are you going to do with the money when you get it? Or more importantly, the price will be like, and these not our part of script. It's just things that I want to know why. Okay, so if you're asking $230,000 for the property, if you were to get $230,000, what were you expecting to walk away with?
Yep.
Oh, 30,000. Okay, so they own around 200. Okay, so what do you need that 30 grand for? Right? I mean, these to me are just common sense questions, which are not for most people, and you don't need to do that these days with the way we have things. I mean, I hope within the next two podcasts, not I hope, I know for a fact, within the next two podcasts, Sean and I, who's my other partner, and David, we all own Creative REI Replay together, which you already know, people that are here. It's a software system that does all that. Well, we developed and created a creative real estate calculator that's inside that system, and the only place you can get that is in the system. Well, what we did is we kind of dumbed the calculator down so we can use the basic features of that calculator for free. And that website I'm going to reveal that website in the next podcast, a couple of podcasts. You're going to be able to go on there and do 1 or 3 deals. I think 3 deals a day for free. Now, all it's going to do is you're going to put these numbers that I'm talking about: price, payments, duration, and deposit. If they talk about it, you're going to be able to put them in there, and then it's going to tell you with a red, yellow, or green light which one of my 7 deals you can do. Now, the full version in Creative REI Reply allows you to click on the deal, and once you click on the deal, it goes over the 7 or 8 points you need to go over with the seller. And when they say yes, you click on a button and you put an email address in there, and you send the seller while you're on the phone with them a memorandum, and they sign it while you're on the phone with them. Okay, the lower version's not going to have that, right? But the point is that's how important these numbers are. So what I'm saying is that you don't need to do all this why stuff like I'm talking about. I'm just curious and I want to know why, right? Number 3, once you analyze the math and then the motivation, you test it all with sending the memorandum like I talked about, so you know that the seller is interested, right? But is not just interested, they desire, right? So there's a difference between interest and desire. Interest is like, yeah, that'd be kind of nice if that happened, right?
Yeah.
And desire is like, yeah, I want that.
Yep.
Right. So the way you know that is by looking at the deal, and you realize what happens is when you look at the deal, you figure out who's doing the most amount of work. Is it you doing the most amount of work, or is it the seller doing the most amount of work?
Yep.
And if it's you doing the most amount of work, they're just at interest. They're only doing it if it was if we can all sit around the campfire and sing kumbaya, then they'll do it,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it, but it's true. If you're doing all the work, if you're making every phone call, they're not interested. They're not. I mean, they're not. They don't really want to do it. If they want to, they would be calling you.
Let me give you an example. You say to the seller, you know what? I need to get a your mortgage statement. So could you email that to me? And 2 days later, you call them up and say, I didn't get that email. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. I'll send it. And then 2 days later, you didn't get the email. Who's doing all the work?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
Or just the opposite. I need you to send it to me. Hang on, I'll do it while I'm on the phone with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
it's a big difference. And when you see it, you'll know it. It's like actually going the way it's supposed to. Like it's actually going.
Right.
Getting somewhere.
I could tell you that I think I'm the kindest, gentlest person ever. If things are going right. I could also be the biggest jerk ever. I have two. I have one or the other. There's not really anything in between. And you know that because you get both ends of it all the time. You never know with me what you're going to get. You could say something and I could be like, yeah, no problem. Or I'll be like, ah. And I understand.
You've been very, very good, a lot lately for a good while. I've learned how to stay on that side of you. You're fine.
Here is my point. When I feel like I'm being bullshitted, I have no tolerance for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because every day of my life, I have all kinds of people running at me, contractors and bankers and utility companies and insurance companies and students and sellers and buyers. They all think I'm rich and they're taking a run at me.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest tool that I have in my arsenal is I pay attention to what people do, not what they say.
Bingo.
And that's how I test people, by not what they're telling me, but by what they're doing.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So number 4, after you get this memorandum signed, it's end of cycle 1.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. End of cycle 1. Now we open up cycle number 2, which is the deal meeting. And yes, we do the same thing. We get and analyze the data about the house. See, before we were getting and analyzing the data about the financing.
Yeah.
Then we were getting the data and analyzing the seller's motivation. Now we're getting and analyzing the house.
Yep.
Right? So using the data this way, you start to analyze situations. You start to see the situations pop out because the math doesn't have feelings.
Right.
Now, we're on podcast number 336. So 335, we flipped the whole formula on its head because I was talking about doing money now, money monthly, money later first.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing you should start doing, is analyzing the data. Because when you analyze data, what does that mean?
When you analyze something, you have to be comparing things
Right.
to each other.
Right.
The problem rookies have is when somebody says, I want to sell for certain amounts of money and time and all that, and you're new at it, you don't know if it's any good. And then it's been within a year or so, this last year, that's really come to the surface that we pay a lot of attention to. Well, what are we going to sell it for? And when you know that, that's all you need to know if you can buy it to sell it.
Right.
How do you know otherwise? That's why we get nervous, because we don't know what's going to happen. So instead of worrying about the future, you get the data about the future. This is what can happen. The numbers fit, you buy it.
Right.
And that took a
Okay.
lot of stress out of it.
So I'm going to try to put in the next minute or two, kind of like really make this so simple.
Mm-hmm.
So the word analyze, right, just like what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
says to discover or reveal something through detailed examination.
Good.
Okay. That doesn't work for me. Here's the reason why. Because if you try to go to the derivation of the word, derivation means where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go look and see where it comes from, a lot of times it makes so much sense.
Yeah, like why did they come up with the word? They had a night. It meant something to whoever came up with it. So what's the derivation on this one?
So
I
there
don't
is no
understand.
derivation. There is no derivation, which brought me to the word analysis.
Okay.
So analyze comes from the word analysis.
Okay.
All right. So analysis is, you ready for this? And it's also the derivation. This is going to blow your mind ahead. So it says definition number one is detailed examination of elements or structure of something. So analyze is discover or reveal something through detailed examination, right?
Mm-hmm.
Analysis is detailed examination of elements. It's the same definition. So I'm like, that's not right. So I keep going, and here's what I found out. You ready?
Yeah.
It's the process of separating something into smaller elements.
Mm.
So the derivation means to unloosen or loosen up, take apart,
Yep.
free from one another. Right? So you're like, it's like you have this, I don't know, this, what would be a good example?
Well, Bill, they have the TV shows. They do analysis, like detective shows. They take
yeah,
something and they analyze, see what's in there to see who killed who, because they find a fiber of hair and it came from this
right.
mud from over there, the only place you can get it. So they find what things are built with. So they get right down to very small components, what's it built. Like we're looking for a lot of details on the house, how much they want to sell it for, how much they want to take monthly, a lot of details. Then we have to compare it to what we can do, more details. So you're looking at a lot of broken down details.
Okay, so based on that, so if I were talking to you as a seller, you were
Yeah.
the seller, and you're telling me all about the house, right? How does that help me?
It doesn't.
So how many bedrooms? I mean, obviously I need to know, but you did a renovation, you put new rugs in, it's got a new furnace, it's got this. How does that help me?
Yeah.
But if you tell me you want 200,000 and you're willing to take $1,300 a month payments for the next 3 years, will that help me?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the house is unless you get there and it's a real disaster.
Right.
Because if somebody has been living in it, somebody can live in it, and there's always somebody who would like it.
So,
Being on the street.
like you said, analysis is compared to something else, right?
Mm.
So this is where I was going back to where my coaching thing is like, okay, so you've never done a deal before. What are you going to compare the information to?
Yeah.
Which is the reason why most people have trouble, is because they don't know what the ideal scene is. They don't know what the steps of a transaction are. And so when they're gathering information, they're not comparing it to that sequence of steps or what needs to happen, because they themselves have never done it or spent time with somebody like me and allow me to do that for them until they can get comfortable with the sequence or the steps.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So when I talk about money now, money monthly, money later, that's all good. It's making you think, but it's my way of trying to get you to do an analysis or analyze the data. Because
Yep.
those numbers will force you to do that. Because money monthly I mean, money now, money monthly, money later is going to force you to think, okay, my money now is 10 grand. I can get $10,000 deposit. Okay, good. Money monthly, I can make $400 a month profit.
Yep.
Oh, money later. If I wait 5 years, I can make $37,000. It forces you to think the way, to analyze the data the way you should analyze the data. That's why this formula is so spectacular. And you have to go back to episode number 335 and listen to it, because when you do, and we talk about how you can change the deal by just using this simple formula, and how you can make it in our favor. Like we did a practice deal, and we only had like $200 a month or something like that. By the time we got done, it was like $800 a month, right? Because of the money now, money monthly, money later.
Right, because you can change those.
Right.
So part of what we learned a week or two ago, whatever you think you can get, you do have some control over how you might change it and make some adjustments so you can improve upon it. You're not really stuck with that. That's a starting point. Hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? I mean, you do that with apartment buildings. Like you put in laundromats, and you put a playground in, and preferred parking, and you just find ways to make more money on it. Think a little bit.
Right. Okay. So I hope I'm kind of like, so let's kind of like, I've completely destroyed my notes. I just looked there and I'm like, yeah, I don't know where I am. So I'm going to wing it from here. Okay.
Sure.
So you have these elements, right? So you have the price, the payment, the terms, and deposit if they bring it up.
Right.
Okay. So let me ask you something. When you sell a house, what do you need? What does the buyer need from you?
What the buyer needs from us?
Yeah, what do they need from you before they can make a decision? They need the price, they need the payment, they need the term, and they need the deposit.
Yeah.
Or down payment money.
Yep.
If you don't have those four numbers, then how are they going to be able to evaluate the deal?
Yeah, you can't. Because they're analyzing it too, compared to other houses that they might be interested in purchasing.
Which is why I use the term, how popular is the house?
Yep. Compared to other houses. We don't live in a vacuum. Data, you and I both know this. Data isn't data. Data is only data when you compare it to other data.
Right.
How much money did you make? 5.
Right.
Per minute, per hour, per week, 5 what?
Right.
It's compared to what? So compared to other houses in the neighborhood, things change, and what's going to be in a month.
People are evaluating our podcast based on what other podcasts do and say.
Yeah.
I mean, they evaluate me and my quirkiness based on other gurus, but here's the stupid thing on them. I'm not a guru. I don't care what Ron LeGrand does. I don't care what Pace Morby does. I don't care what, Robert Kiyosaki does. Because you know what I do that none of them do?
Still buy houses directly?
Deals. That's right. Deals. That's 100% correct.
Yeah.
So they're better at marketing than I am.
Yeah, but you're more real because of that.
Right.
And people are looking for reality, not somebody who's slick or who's made a bunch of money and has a big team and lives in big mansions and doesn't have to do it anymore, shows up his face. How many times you go to a Robert Kiyosaki event and there's Robert Kiyosaki? Ron LeGrand still comes around a bit, but he leaves on the 4th day. He goes.
Yeah, exactly. I started talking about this. I started talking about this the other day on Creative REI Reply, which is our new software, because I've got three partners, right? And I actually said, I did a webinar, not last week, but the week before Christmas, right? And I actually said to the people that were watching the webinar, like, where else are you going to go and have the 2 founders of the company running the support calls?
Yeah. So
Rocky, I don't know if you're patting me on the back or slap me in the face there, buddy, but he says I don't sugarcoat it either. I think that's meant as a compliment. I'm just joking around. Yeah. So my personality is quirky that way. I don't, yeah, I have certain things I don't tolerate. There you go. So,
Well, people sometimes talk at a social level of what they think you want to hear. You don't have that filter.
well, I'm not, we're talking about me. Yeah, pat on the back. Thank you. I was joking with him and he was good. Pat on the back. Thank you, Red. So now watch this. So we have this data, price, payment, terms. I'm sorry, price, payment, yeah, duration, and deposit. That's all we need in the deal.
Yeah.
Now we plug it into money now, money monthly, money later, which, by the way, what is money now, money monthly, money later? Where do we get that information, Peter?
Well, that's what you can expect from the environment by looking at comps and what other people are doing to compare to that.
So it's the money we're going to sell for, right?
Yeah.
So we're comparing what we can sell for to what we can buy for in this money now, money monthly, money later. So the analysis where you're taking apart the information, right? You're taking apart the price by saying, okay, well, I think I can sell, or I'm pretty damn sure I can sell for. This is you. I think I can, or I'm positive I can, right? Oh, well, it comps for 220. So if I sell for 180, I know I'll give it away. I know I'll get a buyer, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if you can sell for 200, then what do you have to buy for? Less than 200.
Yep.
That's doing an analysis. That's comparing the data. So that's your money later. Because if you can sell for 200 and buy for 180, that's going to actually be some money now and some money later. Right? So suppose you pay 180 and sold for 200, maybe they give you 10 grand down now and 10 grand later.
Yep.
Right? See how the analysis works? But it's the right type of information that you need to be able to make a decision. Should I or shouldn't I? Is it risky? Is it not risky? How much money am I putting into the deal? How much am I risking?
Yeah, but speaking about risk, the other part of the computation here for us is the riskier it is, the less risk we take. Like if there's very, very little risk, we might take it on subject to take the mortgage over, right? Because we feel comfortable. What if it was risky? Screw it. I'm not taking the deed and being responsible. I'll just do it with an option.
So I'd like to say what you just said in different words. So the more riskier it is, the less liability we take on.
Yes.
The more riskier it is, the less liability we take on. The least amount of risk, the more liability we take on. And the way we measure liability in creative real estate is, are we getting a deed in our name or not?
Yeah.
Because deed in our name is full liability. Deed not in our name is no liability.
So we can adjust it that way too. We have the control of the numbers, see coming and going. Then if there's any concern, you can just adjust your level of commitment, the liability level. So you don't have to get yourself in trouble.
So analyzing data is not difficult if you know what data is important to analyze. And I'm telling you, after doing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of analyzing deals, analyzations of deals, that's what you need to analyze. It's taken me 20 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
Right? It's just those four numbers. If you know those four numbers, and you know how much you have to pay, and you know how much you have to buy for. I'm sorry, how much you have to. Let's just start over. If you know how much you can sell for and how much you have to pay, then it's just analyzing those numbers to see, A, can I make money? And if I can, where? B, how much risk is there? And then C, I need to go out. Now that I've done that, all of that, I need to start the cycle all over again with qualifying the property. And one of these days, I'm going to come up with a simple formula for qualifying the property. But the biggest thing is, the one that holds it all together is how popular will it be?
Yeah.
In other words, if every house in the neighborhood is selling for 200 and I'm going to be at 190, will I be popular?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or what kind of condition is the house in? You know, it's in really good shape. So if I take pictures of it and put it online, it's going to create a lot of popularity. People are going to be like, oh my God, this house has a built-in swimming pool. It's got a helicopter pad. Oh my God, it's a 6-car garage with 2 Lamborghinis in it for only $200,000. Right? So maybe next week. I probably won't, because I don't have 337 podcasts written yet because I was ill for 5 days. But I should do another podcast, or we should do another podcast on value, creating and giving value. Because value is what creates popularity.
And there's a lot of different kinds of value. While you were talking about the fancy house with the Lamborghinis and all that, it made me think of the opposite. Well, what about the house that isn't so hot? You turn that into a handyman special, because for a lot of people, that is a huge value. That's exactly what they wish they could get their hands on. So they can do it themselves, get a good price, make it look nice the way they want. They want that. So you advertise it as that, and you find that person.
So I could tell you that I read a lot. I'm going to say this before I go. I can tell you I read a lot. I definitely read a lot, which I'm trying to stop doing a bit, actually, because I don't know if it helps me or hurts me. But anyways, sometimes too much information is not important. Non-important information is not good either.
Yeah.
So I'm instead of going wide these days, I'm trying to get my 4-inch square and drill 10,000 miles down. I want to stay close and neat to what I want to do, right? In any event, here's my opinion of value. Value doesn't mean anything to any of us. What's more important to us, especially us marketers, is perceived value. Perceived meaning what you think value is, right? Learn that in college, right? One college boy, look at that girl over there. What girl? That hot looking, oh my God, she's amazing. She's a 10. And you look over there and you're like, she's a 4. What are you talking about, dude? Right? Perceived value. Perceived. What do you think is valuable?
Yeah.
And that's the problem with marketing. There's so many different perceptions and ideas of what is considered valuable, which is the reason why marketing, the only way to do marketing is to find a hungry group and sell them hamburgers. You won't have to worry about vegans, and you won't have to worry about how they were cooked, and you won't have to worry about if they have a bun, or if there's too many carbohydrates, or if they want pickles or onions. You won't have to worry about any of that. They haven't eaten for 5 days. They're hungry. They want food, and you have hamburgers. And when you start running your real estate business exactly that way, which by the way, I'm selling 2 houses right now, getting ready to put a 3rd one on the market, rent to own. By the way, when you sell on a rent to own, and I don't use that language anymore, but on a lease option or house for sale, no bank qualifying, you are feeding hamburgers to a crowd that hasn't had food in probably 10 years. Because their past is colorful and they can't buy a house, and they've been in a situation for way too long. And you just give them a hope they never had before, a glimmer of a new life. And when you start seeing that and hearing that, I don't give a crap who you are. Money becomes secondary. When you watch these people transform, when you give them opportunities they never had before, and you watch them struggle to get this done, and you stand in a house and they hug you and they cry, and you watch them come into a house while they're moving in, and the things they do to that house because they own it. Money's important, but that's even more important. It is incredible. And when you don't analyze your data and you do things wrong and you don't know the ideal scene and you don't get help from people like you and I, you're giving that up. Not a good thing. I've surveyed. My number one question that blows me away is, how much do you think it's costing you for not doing a deal? 90-something% use one word. Millions. There's no variation in that answer. Millions. Right? How much do you think you're giving up with not doing deals right now, Peter? Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm doing deals. I'm thinking about how I can get my system tighter so I can do more deals.
Okay.
Not because I want to do more deals, not because I want more money. It's because I want to help more people.
Yeah.
Okay. Sermon over. Hopefully you enjoyed today's podcast. Thank you for being with me. Don't forget to leave us a review wherever you are. Don't forget to subscribe to wherever you're listening to us or watching us. Go to WhatsApp Messenger and look for Let's Talk Real Estate. If you have any questions about the podcast, go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. And by all means, go in the description of wherever you're watching us. And there is today I put a masterclass in there, 3 classes of how we're doing real estate now, which is pretty cool. So go check that out. All right. And thanks for sure. Thanks, Rocky, for the comments, and the rest of you that are here live listening with us. I can see there's a whole bunch of you on there. And that's it. Here we go, Peter. We're gonna walk across the bridge. 2023. Here we come.
Here it is, folks.
Yep. All right, guys. Have a good week. We'll talk next week. Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Podcast number 337 will be awesome. Over and out.